it's what I like. It's the authenticity in coaches, right? They're just going to shoot you straight. Hey, give a lot of credit to Team X, and they did this, and they're real matter of fact. And sometimes, Ryan, like I get it, like the fan base could kind of roll their eyes, and it's about what this team isn't, but he's very unapologetic, a lot like the guy kind of that we have in Lincoln. Is that still playing well in Minnesota with the fan base? Because by now, you guys got to kind of understand that's just who Coach Fleck is, right?
Yeah, I would say that I think folks know who PJ Fleck is up here, whether they want to or not. Is He is who he is, and
Wow.
the way I always describe him every single time is now that he's almost he is over halfway through his ninth season here, which is crazy because now with James Franklin being fired, he is the second
Yeah, it's him and
longest
Kirk.
tenured coach behind Kirk Ferentz. I mean, it is crazy to kind of see how the coaching carousel works, but he is 5 Red Bulls all the time. Not just one, not just two, not just three. He is 5 all the time. And that's very off putting for a lot of people. And if that's not your speed, I get it. It's just that's the way he is, whether the camera's on or the camera's off, whether you're sitting in his office or you're sitting at a press conference. So he is who he is. And what he's done here is win like 60% of his games
Yeah.
during this time. And it's a place that is very hard to win at in Minnesota. Jerry Kill had some success back in the day. Glenn Mason had some success back in the day, but you look at their record, they're above 500 in the conference year so far. And you look at 2024, 2022, 2021, they ended with winning conference records. So he's winning at a place that's hard to win at. And I think if you're going to do that, you have to be something that can't be normal. And PJ Fleck is many things, but I don't know that normal is something that is going to be with him.
Ryan, it is hard to believe that Fleck is in his ninth
That's
year
crazy.
at Minnesota. It never, I don't know, to me at least, it never felt like he was a long-term type of guy. He's a guy whose name has been brought up in other jobs as well. Not that I bring that up for any particular reason this week. How has the view of him kind of evolved and how people think about the job he's done here? You mentioned it's not a super easy place to win. He had the one really, really good year in 2019, I believe. Is
Mm-hmm.
that, has he sort of, because we saw this in Penn State, right? James Franklin said to sort of reset his own standard, and that was used against him. Has that been the case in Minnesota at all?
That's a great question.
It
I would say
is.
I don't think it has. I know that expectations are for, say, a place like Minnesota. You talk about that 2019 season when they go 11-2, beat Penn State at home, beat Auburn in the Outback Bowl. I think more and more fans in this market, because it is such a unique market within the Big Ten. Why do I say that? There's 4 pro sports teams in town. So you're competing each and every week with somebody for attention. And I think that this college football town is beginning to understand the realities of the situation, that they don't have necessarily the resources that a Nebraska does or a Wisconsin does. When you just look at straight, even athletic department revenue, or you look at total donations, Minnesota is not up there, even in the top half. They're in the bottom 5. So the expectation would be, for at least for me, as someone who covers this program, I'd love to see a 2019 type of season, say twice a decade. Now, is that too much? Is that too little? I mean, I know that that wouldn't be an expectation for, say, Huskers fans, but I think the reality is what it is here. And for him to continue to win games, I mean, he's won 8 or more games in 3 of the last 4 seasons, and they're 4-2 right now. Probably won a couple of Big Ten games. They probably shouldn't, but he's a good coach, and they have what they have for players. So I don't think the clock has to necessarily be reset. I know he flirted with UCLA a couple of off seasons ago. I don't see that happening in this off season, but I also think we're setting ourselves up, and I'm sure you're already tired of coaching carousel talk down there, but I think we're setting ourselves up to see a coaching carousel that's once in every 5 or even once in every 10 years if all these jobs do end up becoming open by November.
Ryan, let me ask you something before we move on to the specifics of the matchup. Uh, I was talking to one of our guys that, one of your colleagues, Brian Christopherson from 24/7 Sports, and I've noticed just covering this team for so long. There's like this closet, and maybe it's not closet, like this vitriol. I think that exists between both fan bases. I don't know if it was a Fleck Frost thing. I don't know if it's the 5 in a row. Like it just, Brian talked about 1984 and some of the guys that still cover it bring that up. Do you get the sense that there's like this? It's an off the radar disdain, in my opinion. It just doesn't seem like that fan base really enjoys anything Nebraska. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is. It is
The
one
chuck-
where
the
I think there's
chuckle.
a lot of. It is a strange one to me because I know that from Lincoln to Minneapolis, it's not the furthest drive, but there's a lot of closer Big Ten schools, or at least a few closer Big Ten schools. But I think you think about even going back to when Minnesota won here against Scott Frost, and there was the hoodie gate where Scott Frost and his hoodies versus Fleck comes into his press conference afterwards, and I haven't seen him that fired up. I mean, I've seen a lot of PJ Fleck press conferences in my day, but he's out here yelling at the pulpit about culture over skill, and I know that riled a lot of people up. And then the reality of the situation, too, is Fleck is 6-1 against Nebraska, and he probably shouldn't be. And he's 5-0 in his last 5, and that's with 3 straight one-possession wins. And I think there is a little bit of envy there that why can they do it at Minnesota, but we can't do it here? And that's where finally now, and with Matt Rule, with the year 3 bump, that team's playing well. Raiola's starting to figure out a little bit more. I think this is a very different type of Nebraska team that's coming to town, but I saw the Monday presser there with Rule, and I am absolutely, I'll say, gobsmacked to learn. Nebraska hasn't won back-to-back road games since 2006.
That's
that
crazy.
cannot be a real statistic, gentlemen. I refuse to believe that.
It's nuts. It is absolutely.
Yeah,
nuts.
that's super depressing. Appreciate you bringing that up. So I want to talk about kind of Minnesota, the way they've been playing so far this year. Obviously, they've been throwing the ball quite a bit more than they have in years past, especially with PJ Fleck. And that was the same thing I said about Maryland coming in, and Maryland kind of went out of their way to try and run the football against Nebraska as well. Do you think Minnesota will stick to who they've been throughout the year so far, or will they try and, depending on how you look at it, either take advantage of Nebraska's run defense or try and avoid Nebraska's pass defense?
Yeah, that's an outstanding question because Minnesota, and it is very strange for me to say this, but the truth can't be controversial, they stink at running the football. I mean, they are last in the conference against Big Ten teams with 44 rushing yards per game. I mean, it has been tough sledding. Now, some of that is because they're all Big Ten running back. Darius Taylor has missed a month, and he returned last week against Purdue. But this kind of tells the story is Darius Taylor last week against the Boilermakers at home. And I'll remind you, Purdue is not some elite run defense in the Big Ten. He had more yards after contact than he did rushing yards.
And it seems like Feme's the better runner. Am I misreading that?
Feme has gotten, so Feme Edgeboy, the redshirt freshman you're talking about, he has gotten a lot more run because we've also seen they brought in one higher profile, I would say, type of running back from Marshall and A.J. Turner. And in the first game without Darius, he goes down with a season-ending knee injury.
Yeah.
We've seen now, this is the 3rd straight odd year, and I say odd as in 2021. Minnesota was on running back 5 by mid-October, which is how Bucky Irving and Kai Thomas back in the day got going. 2023, they were on running back 5, and I mean, we're already seeing now, hopefully Darius can stay healthy, but they were on running back 3 and 4. I mean, Feme is the more east-west explosive type of guy where Darius can make you miss in a phone booth a little bit more, and I think he was rusty last week against Purdue, frankly. But that is the thing we've been asking Fleck about, the offensive coordinator, Greg Harbaugh Jr., as well, is what can you do to get this running game out of neutral? It's stuck in the mud. It's spinning its tires. It's out in the – I mean, it is – not in a good place. And I think, to me, it starts up front with physicality. And this is among the least physical offensive lines I've covered for Minnesota.
Is that Marshall, Beers, and Ray probably that are driving you crazy?
Yes, the interior of the offensive line has been something I've been screaming into the ether that they should change the bodies, but they refuse to change the bodies. Because I think Minnesota's actually got a couple of good tackles in Nathan Roy and Greg Johnson out there, and I'm excited to see them match up with 96 and 15. I know 96 specifically has been just a game wrecker the last couple of weeks. And see how they end up doing. But the thing with Marcellus Marshall, who is, you're either going to see him at left guard or right guard. You look at the Pro Football Focus stuff, and I know the grades are all subjective and whatnot, but I don't consider, say, QB hits and pressures allowed that subjective. No Big Ten guard has allowed more pressures, hurries, and quarterback hits than Marcellus Marshall, yet he is at no point in the first 6 games lost his job. I cannot fathom continuing to run him out there or the same interior offensive line, but if they don't get any push on Friday night, I got a hard time believing that they're going to be able to do much of anything. And if that allows this Nebraska pass defense that I believe against Power 4 opponents has more interceptions than they do touchdowns allowed, and you can allow 96 and 15 to pin their ears back, it might be tough sledding. So they got to figure out a way to run the football on Friday.
All right, let me ask you something, because this is interesting, just because Coach Collins recruited our household so hard, and I know how he feels about tackling and versatility in the secondary and things like that. How much do you think, and we heard Coach Fleck allude to it again this week, how much do you think tackling is driving Coach Collins in particular crazy, given his temperament and kind of what he's seen previous secondaries accomplish at Minnesota?
Oh, he's pulling his hair out. I know he is. I mean, I'm the one asking him about these missed tackles. I'm the one asking Fleck about these missed tackles. They got 58 of them in their last 4 games, and now they get to play a Nebraska offense that has over 1,000 yards after the catch. My favorite stat from doing my research this week is Nebraska pass catchers have more yards after the catch than Iowa does passing yards. I mean, that is silly. So it is something to where you watch these games back and guys are in positions to make the right plays. Like, the scheme isn't part of the issue for me. It is the players are in position to make plays and they're just not making them. Now, the question is, why aren't they making them? Are they taking poor angles? Are they being hesitant? Are they thinking too much? I don't know what the answer is. I don't know that Collins knows what the answer is, but they got a big test coming up on Friday. Because whether you want to talk about Isaiah Hunter, Danny Key, Ja'Cory Barty, or even the pride of Richfield, Minnesota, coming back for his first revenge game against the team who didn't take him, Emmett Johnson, who has been sensational. I mean, he is so fun to watch right now in that Nebraska offense. I mean, get guys into space and let them cook, because that's what Nebraska does. So Minnesota has struggled to tackle in space, and if that is the case, they're facing a Nebraska offense that's got more 30-yard gains than any other offense in the Big Ten. So they better tackle a lot better on Friday, or else this thing could get pear-shaped in a hurry.
I just want to say, you mentioned Emmett Johnson there. There was an interview that he kind of a sit-down with some of his teammates he did over the summer, and they're like, "Oh yeah, don't we play Minnesota this year?" And let me tell you, he had October 17th on the tip of his tongue. He's either going to have the best game of his life, or he's going to be so wound up he's not going to do anything. And I have no idea which it is, but it's definitely going to be different.
Well, I'll tell you, this is a Minnesota run defense that just gave up 250-something rushing yards to Purdue. I'll be the first to tell you, Devin Mockabee is a player for Purdue I hope I never see again in my life.
Listen, he does Nebraska fits too. Don't.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he's a handful.
He had his coming out party what felt like 8 years ago against Nebraska. Apparently, he's still there.
And that was when he was a big back.
Yeah.
He killed Minnesota in 2022, killed him in 2023. Now, Purdue found ways to win those games against Minnesota. And then last week, he had over 59 rushing yards in only one game, and he comes in here and he's looking like Mike Allstott reincarnate again. So I'm really hoping that Emmett Johnson doesn't look like the last, I think, isn't the stat going around there all that the last time Nebraska wore all white was back in, I think, 2016, and who was the back? Newby?
Yeah, Terrell Newby when he had the big game against Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm hoping I don't see Emmett Johnson do that on Friday. I'll say that.
Let me ask you something, because I know a lot of the guys up there in the media. I think quietly there seems to kind of be this sentiment. You could correct me, fact or fiction, that they're, even though Nebraska's defensive secondary stats are what they are, quietly, do you guys kind of think you can make some plays? Is that just me, or is that kind of what you think?
I'll be the first one to tell you, I ain't the highest man on this pass catching core up here. They're coming off a performance against Purdue where they were 1 for 13 in contested catch situations. I think Drake Lindsey.
His passing total is 220, though. Like, it's 220 for this game. They got to know something.
I'll say this. You're going to get to see Drake Lindsey on Friday night, and I think he's got a chance to be what I thought Ethan Kaliak-Manis was going to be back in the day. Ethan is performing real well out there with Kirk Shiraka at Rutgers now, but I think the processing ability for Drake Lindsey is far and beyond what it was for Ethan Kaliak-Manis in these years, and Drake's got the arm to make many of these throws. The question is, can he get guys in? Can guys get open? Because Minnesota has struggled to get separation. Now, they love to use Darius Taylor as an extension of the run game. I mean, you're going to see Darius Taylor likely catch at least 6 passes unless there is some vendetta to take him out of the game plan. They are going to use him as an extension of the run game, and we saw them go to some screens last week, but I'm not the one to sell you on these Minnesota pass catchers that they're playing particularly well right now. They're replacing Daniel Jackson and Elijah Spencer from last year, and that was over 80% of their receiver production. They need to be a lot better for Drake because Drake is putting the ball where it needs to be a large part of these times. It's just the 50-50 balls are right now 10-90 balls, and that's not a great place to live.
Ryan, you see, I'll be honest, you seem a little pessimistic about Minnesota. How do you think this one goes?
You're playing possum, aren't you?
Yeah. I'll say this. Minnesota always plays Nebraska well, and especially here at Huntington Bank Stadium. And I'm very curious to see how Nebraska handles the pressure of now being ranked, all the hoopla around Matt Rule and Penn State this week. You haven't won back-to-back road games since 2006. I feel like there's not very much pressure on Minnesota for this one, and I think the Vegas line, and I've had people ask me, is there some injury news for Minnesota that I don't know about with this thing going from 4-5.5 all the way?
I was probably one of the guys that asked that, not to you directly, but I did ask a couple guys, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, there's no injury news from Minnesota as far as I'm aware. All their best players are going to be playing in this game. I'll say, if Minnesota's physicality is the same as it was last week on the offensive and defensive lines, they're not going to win on Friday night. They're just not. But the question is, can they play their best football of the season against a team that they've done that a lot against over the years? Now, I tend to believe that as much as it is going to be a Friday night game on Fox and everybody's going to be in town, there'll be 50,000 people in the stadium. You are what you are, and until you change that, the missed tackles and the lack of physicality scares me. So I'm going to tell you, I'm picking Nebraska in this game as we sit here today. It doesn't feel good for me to do that, knowing what I know about Nebraska in road games, Nebraska in these games, but Minnesota's lack of physicality up front is just so out of character for what this team has been for so many years. But when you look back at last week, again, they ran the ball for 30-something yards against Purdue, yet they had 250 put down their throat. Now you get a Nebraska team who I think is much better than Purdue, certainly has better skill possession than Purdue. I'm going to be picking the Huskers in this one.
I knew you wouldn't disappoint. You just always keep it a buck. It's what you do.
That is our guy, Ryan Burns from Gophers Illustrated, part of the 24/7 Network. Ryan, we appreciate the time, and I hope we enjoy the game more than you on Friday.
Yeah, best of luck, boys, and I appreciate it.
Yep, see you soon, Ryan. Appreciate you.